My name is Natalie Edward. I was 22 years old when everything I'd quietly built finally became impossible to ignore. But to understand how that moment happened, you need to know what came before it. The years of silence, the patterns I didn't even realize I was living inside. I grew up in what most people would call a good family. My parents weren't cruel, they didn't yell or neglect us in any obvious way. From the outside, we probably looked perfect. Sunday dinners, family vacations, school events. My mom packed lunches with little notes inside. My dad coached my brother's soccer team. They loved us, I really do believe that. But love doesn't always mean equality. Ethan is my younger brother. He's 3 years younger than me, and from the time he was born, he was the sun everyone orbited around. I don't think it was intentional at first. He was the baby. He was charming and loud and needed more attention. I was the older one, the responsible one, the one who didn't need as much help. That's what they told themselves anyway. I learned early that my achievements didn't carry the same weight. I'd bring home a report card full of A's, and my mom would smile and say, "That's great, sweetie," before turning back to help Ethan with his homework. When I made honor roll, it was expected. When Ethan passed a math test, it was celebrated. I stopped expecting applause. I stopped needing it, or at least I told myself I did. They called it different parenting styles. I called it learning to stay quiet. By the time I left for college, I'd already started to disappear. Not physically, just emotionally. I stopped sharing my wins because I knew how the conversation would go. College became my escape, a place where my name actually meant something. College was the first place I felt seen. I earned a full academic scholarship my freshman year, made Dean's List every single semester. I joined student government, led a research team, landed competitive internships that most students only dreamed about. My professors knew my name. My peers asked for my advice. I was building something real. But when I called home, none of it seemed to translate. The conversations were always short. My mom would ask how I was doing, and I'd start to tell her about a project I was leading, about an award I'd received, and she'd listen for a minute before the tone would shift. "That's wonderful, honey. Hey, did I tell you Ethan made varsity?" And just like that, the focus would slip away. I remember one call specifically. I'd just had my research published in an undergraduate journal, something I'd worked on for months. I was so excited I could barely sit still. I called home the second I got the news. My mom answered, and I started explaining what it meant, how rare it was for an undergrad to get published. She listened. She said she was proud. Then, mid-sentence, I heard my dad's voice in the background. "Is that Natalie? Tell her we'll call her back. Ethan's game starts in 10 minutes. She didn't even hesitate. "Sweetie, I'm so proud of you. We'll talk later, okay? Love you." The call ended before I could say anything else. I sat there, holding my phone, staring at the screen. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even surprised. I was just tired. That became the pattern. My life existed in the margins of theirs. And then, a few months later, my mom called with news that would somehow make it all even clearer. Ethan was graduating high school, and according to her, it was going to be the biggest event our family had ever seen. My mom called me 3 months before Ethan's graduation with a level of excitement I hadn't heard in years. She'd already booked a photographer, reserved a table at the nicest restaurant in town, started a group chat with the extended family to coordinate travel plans. She talked about matching outfits, about ordering a custom cake, about making sure everyone could take the day off work. "You'll be there, right?" she asked, though it wasn't really a question. "I need you to help with some of the planning. You're so good at organizing things." I said yes. Of course I said yes. She sent me lists, things to pick up, people to call, details to confirm. I handled it all without complaint. I was good at this role, the dependable one, the one who made things run smoothly in the background. What I didn't tell her, what I didn't tell anyone, was that I was finishing my own graduate program that same semester, my master's degree, 2 years of research, late nights, presentations, thesis defenses. I was weeks away from completing something I'd worked harder for than anything else in my life. But I didn't bring it up. Not because I was trying to make a point, not because I wanted them to feel guilty. I just knew how it would go. It would become another thing I was always doing, another achievement that didn't quite warrant the same celebration. So I stayed quiet. I learned a long time ago that there wasn't space for both of us to shine at the same time, and in my family, Ethan's light always came first. The week before his ceremony, the texts started coming faster. Small requests, last-minute errands, reminders to be on time, to dress appropriately, to not forget anything important. I could feel something building. I just didn't know what yet. The final week before Ethan's graduation felt like being slowly erased. I drove home 2 days early to help set up. My mom had ordered decorations, banners, balloons, a backdrop for photos. I suggested we arrange them near the window where the light was better. She nodded, then turned to my dad and said, maybe we should put them by the fireplace instead. They moved everything without asking again. My dad handed me a list the next morning. Can you pick up the cake? They close at 5. I rearranged my entire afternoon, drove across town, waited in line, brought it home carefully so nothing would smudge. He took it from me, set it on the counter, and walked away. No thank you, no acknowledgement, just on to the next thing. My mom was on the phone with the photographer when I walked into the kitchen. Yes, family photos right after the ceremony, she said, laughing. We'll all be in navy and white. It'll look so clean. She glanced at me as she said it, a quick look that wasn't really a question, just an assumption that I'd fall in line. She didn't ask what I was planning to wear, didn't ask if I had something that fit the theme. I was expected to figure it out and blend in. The worst moment came the night before the ceremony. We had family over for dinner, aunts, uncles, cousins. My younger cousin, Emma, sat next to me while everyone talked about Ethan. She turned to me, curious. Are you graduating too, Natalie? The table went quiet for a second. My mom laughed, not meanly, just casually. Oh, Natalie finished college ages ago. This is Ethan's big day. That was it. No mention of my master's program, no acknowledgement that I was weeks away from my own ceremony, just a quick dismissal and the conversation moved on. I sat there, fork in hand, and said nothing. I didn't correct her. I didn't defend myself. What would have been the point? That night, alone in my childhood bedroom, I checked my email one last time before bed. There was a new message waiting, one I wasn't expecting. The subject line made my heart stop. I opened it, read it twice, then I sat back and stared at the ceiling, feeling something shift inside me that I couldn't quite name yet. The email was from the Chancellor's office. I almost didn't open it. I thought it was a standard graduation reminder, but the subject line said "Congratulations" in bold, and something made me click. Dear Natalie, it is our distinct honor to inform you that you have been selected as this year's recipient of the Chancellor's Distinguished Graduate Award. This award is presented annually to one graduate student across the entire university who has demonstrated exceptional academic achievement, leadership, and research excellence. The ceremony was scheduled for the next day, same day as Ethan's graduation, 2 hours after his ceremony ended. I sat there on my bed, laptop glowing in the dark, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not excitement, not pride, just clarity. I could tell them. I could walk downstairs right now, interrupt the laughter in the living room, and say, hey, I just found out I'm receiving the highest academic honor my university gives. I could watch my mom's face shift, see her try to manage the conflict, hear her suggest we celebrate both in some rushed, half-hearted way that would satisfy no one. Or I could say nothing. I closed the laptop. It wasn't spite. It wasn't some planned revenge. It was something quieter than that. I realized, sitting there in the silence, that I didn't need them to witness it for it to matter. I didn't need my mom's approval or my dad's proud handshake or a last-minute scramble to make space for me at a table that was never set with me in mind. For the first time in my life, I understood that their recognition wasn't the thing that made me real. The next morning, I woke up early. I got dressed slowly, nothing that matched their navy and white theme. I didn't ask where I was supposed to sit. I didn't ask what time we were leaving. I just moved through the morning like I was already somewhere else, calm, detached, free. The morning was chaos in the way only my family could make it. My mom was everywhere at once, adjusting Ethan's cap, snapping photos by the staircase, checking her list for the third time. My dad stood in front of the mirror, redoing his tie over and over, muttering about traffic. Ethan was nervous, fidgeting with his gown, but smiling. He looked young, happy. I didn't resent him for it. I stood off to the side, in a simple dress, nothing navy, nothing white. No one commented. We arrived at the venue early. The high school auditorium was already filling up, families claiming seats, kids in caps and gowns taking selfies, that low hum of excitement that comes with these kinds of events. My mom led the way down the center aisle like she'd mapped it out weeks ago, and maybe she had. That's when I noticed the reserved seating tags, small white cards taped to the backs of chairs in the third row. I saw my parents' names, my grandparents, my aunt and uncle, even Ethan's best friend's parents. Neat little labels for everyone who mattered. I stopped, looked again, counted the seats. There wasn't one for me. My mom turned, realizing I wasn't following. She glanced at the row, then back at me. For just a second, something flickered across her face. Awareness, maybe. Guilt. But it passed quickly. She smiled, a little flustered. "Oh, we thought you'd sit with the cousins in general admission. We had limited reserved seats, and, well, you understand." I stood there. I didn't argue, didn't ask why my aunt's husband got a seat, but I didn't point out that I'd driven 6 hours, picked up the cake, helped organize half of this day. I just said, "It's fine," and I walked away. I found a seat in the back, alone, surrounded by strangers and distant relatives who didn't know my name. I sat down, smoothed my dress, and watched the ceremony start. Ethan walked across the stage. My parents cheered. The photographer captured everything. I clapped when I was supposed to, smiled when someone glanced my way, but inside I felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, just a strange, weightless kind of distance. When the ceremony ended, everyone stood. My mom started waving people toward the front for photos. I saw her scanning the crowd, probably looking for me. I slipped out the side door before she could find me. I had somewhere else to be. I drove across town with the windows down, letting the noise of the highway drown out everything I'd just left behind. The university auditorium was only 20 minutes away, but it felt like crossing into a different world. I arrived just as the processional music started. The building was grand, vaulted ceilings, chandeliers, rows of seats filled with graduate students in full regalia. Faculty lined the stage in crimson and gold. The air smelled like old wood and possibility. I slipped into the honored graduate section near the front. My name was printed in the program, right there on page 3. The ceremony began with speeches, words about perseverance, growth, the future we were all stepping into. I barely heard them. I was too focused on steadying my breath, on reminding myself that I belonged here. Then the Chancellor stepped to the podium. She was older, composed, the kind of person whose presence commanded attention without effort. She adjusted the microphone and began announcing awards: research excellence, leadership honors, community impact. And then she paused, looked out at the audience with a slight smile. "The Chancellor's Distinguished Graduate Award," she said, her voice clear and deliberate, "is the highest honor we bestow upon a graduate student. It is given to one individual per year, someone who has not only excelled academically, but who has demonstrated exceptional leadership, integrity, and contribution to this university." My heart was pounding so loud I was sure the person next to me could hear it. This year's recipient is Natalie Harper. The applause was immediate, loud. I stood, legs shaking, and walked toward the stage. The Chancellor met me at the steps, hand extended. Her grip was firm, warm. She placed a medal around my neck, heavy, real, and handed me a framed certificate with my name engraved in gold. My thesis advisor was standing off to the side, beaming. A few of my colleagues in the audience stood and cheered, people I'd worked with, studied alongside, people who knew what this meant. It was everything the morning ceremony wasn't. It was genuine, earned, seen. I didn't cry, I didn't raise my arms in victory or make a speech. I just smiled, said thank you, and walked back to my seat. I sat down, medal resting against my chest, and let myself feel it. Not triumph, not vindication, just quiet, steady peace. When the ceremony ended, I walked back to my car. The medal sat in the passenger seat beside me as I drove home. I didn't take a picture of it, didn't post about it. I just drove, windows still down, and let the weight of it settle. I walked into the house hours later to the sound of laughter and clinking glasses. The living room was packed, extended family, Ethan's friends, catering trays spread across every surface. Someone had hung a banner that said, "Congrats, Ethan," in huge letters. Music played softly in the background. Everyone was taking pictures, holding plates, talking over each other in that warm, chaotic way families do. No one asked where I'd been. I slipped past the crowd toward the kitchen, planning to grab water and disappear upstairs. But then my aunt, my mom's sister, looked up from her phone and froze. Her eyes went wide. "Wait," she said, loud enough that a few people turned. "Natalie, did you see this?" She crossed the room quickly, phone outstretched. On the screen was a post from my university's official page, a photo of me on stage, the Chancellor placing the medal around my neck. The caption praised my research, my leadership, my contributions to the university. The comments were already flooding in. Former professors, classmates, colleagues I hadn't spoken to in months, all congratulating me. My aunt turned the phone toward my mom. "Did you know about this?" The room went quiet. Not silent, there was still music, still the hum of conversation in the next room, but our corner of the house stilled. My mom took the phone, stared at the screen. Her face shifted through confusion, then recognition, then something I couldn't quite name. "When?" she started, voice uncertain. "When was this?" "This afternoon," I said, calm, even. My dad stepped closer, looking over her shoulder at the phone. His brow furrowed. "Why didn't you tell us?" I met his eyes, didn't look away. "I did," I said quietly, "last year when I started the program, and again this spring when I was nominated. You weren't listening." The silence deepened. My mom opened her mouth, closed it. She looked at the phone again, as if the post might say something different the second time. Ethan stood near the doorway, holding a plate of food, watching. He looked between me and our parents, and I saw it on his face, the guilt, the slow understanding. My aunt broke the silence. Natalie, this is a huge deal. The Chancellor's Award? That's—" "I know," I said, still calm, still steady. My mom finally looked up from the phone. We didn't know it was today." I nodded. "I know you didn't." The next few days were strange, uncomfortable in a way that wasn't loud, just present. My mom called me the morning after. Her voice was careful, apologetic in that vague way people use when they don't know exactly what they're apologizing for. She wanted to throw a belated celebration. "We could have everyone over again this weekend," she said. "Make it about you this time. I'll post about it on Facebook. Let the family know." "It's already done, Mom," I said. "I don't need a party." There was a pause. "But we want to celebrate you. You didn't need to be there for it to matter." She didn't know what to say to that. My dad tried too, in his own way. He caught me in the hallway the next afternoon, hands in his pockets, looking anywhere but directly at me. "We didn't realize how big of a deal it was," he said, stiff, uncomfortable. "Your award. We should have known." I didn't tell him it was okay. I didn't say it was fine or that I understood. I just nodded. "Yeah." He stood there for a moment longer, like he was waiting for me to absolve him. When I didn't, he cleared his throat and walked away. Ethan was different. He found me alone in the kitchen 2 days later, leaning against the counter while I made tea. He didn't say anything at first, just stood there, looking guilty in a way that felt genuine. "Why didn't you say anything?" he asked quietly. "About the ceremony, about any of it?" I looked at him. He wasn't a villain. He was just a kid who'd been handed all the attention without asking for it, and now he was starting to see what that had cost. Because it wouldn't have changed anything, I said gently. It never did. He nodded slowly, didn't argue, didn't try to defend anyone, just nodded. I wasn't angry at him. I wasn't angry at any of them, really. Anger requires energy, and I didn't have any left to give. I wasn't cutting them off. I wasn't making a statement or drawing a line in the sand. I was just done. Done needing their approval. Done shrinking myself to make room for someone else's spotlight. Done waiting for them to see me. I'd already been seen, just not by them. And somehow, that was enough. I didn't plan any of this as revenge. I want to be clear about that. I didn't orchestrate some grand moment where my family would finally see me and feel terrible about what they'd missed. That's not what this was. I just stopped fighting for space in a family that had never made room for me. The medal sits on my desk now, in my apartment across the state. It's next to a job offer I received 2 weeks after the ceremony, a research position I'd dreamed about since grad school, one that came directly because of the award. I'm building a life here, one where my name means something, where my work is seen, where I don't have to shrink myself to fit into someone else's story. It still hurt, though. I'd be lying if I said it didn't. Watching my mom try to rewrite the narrative in the days after, posting old photos of me on Facebook with captions about how proud she'd always been, calling relatives to tell them about my award like she'd been there cheering me on the whole time. Watching my dad awkwardly try to connect, asking questions about my research that he could have asked years ago. It hurt because it proved what I'd always known. They were capable of seeing me. They just hadn't chosen to. But here's what I learned. Validation from the wrong people is just noise. It doesn't fill anything. It doesn't fix anything. And spending your life trying to earn it is like pouring water into a cup with no bottom. I don't hate my family. I don't wish anything bad for them. Ethan graduated. He's doing well. I'm happy for him. My parents are still my parents. We still talk. But something shifted. I stopped waiting for them to see me the way I needed to be seen. I stopped measuring my worth by their attention. They didn't hide my seat that day. Not really. They just showed me I didn't need one at their table. I have my own table now, and the people sitting around it chose to be there, not out of obligation, not out of guilt, but because they see me clearly and want to stay. That's not revenge. That's not bitterness. That's peace. And for the first time in my life, I don't need anyone's permission to feel it.